There is not much to dislike about living in St. Johns County, whether it's the beautiful beaches, the great school, the beautiful downtown with the arts and the music and the architecture and the history. There is a ton to love about living here in St. Augustine and in St. Johns County. But what I want to do in today's video is go over the 5 biggest things that I see as problems here in St. Johns County that I think you need to know about. And if you're looking to relocate here or you're living here currently, you want to know what's going on. You want to be in the know of what's happening in your possible future home or your current home. So we're going to talk about things like the cost of living going up and what is driving that. We're also going to talk about some of the traditions that and some of the demographic shifts that we're seeing here in St. Johns County. And we're also going to talk about some major infrastructure projects and a couple of other things in this video. But just to give you a quick idea, my name's Thomas and I've lived here locally in St. Augustine since 2019, but I grew up here as a kid. I moved here in 1998. My parents got divorced, moved from Brooklyn, New York down here, and my grandparents have always lived here since I was born, and even before that, my great-grandparents owned home on the intercoastal here since 1970 something. So my family's pretty much rooted here in St. Johns County, so I have a good perspective on how this area has changed since I was a kid and every single year past that. So whether you're looking for an intercoastal $5 million house or if you're looking for a $300,000 home right here in West Augustine, I hope everyone out there, me and my team, could be a service to you. Like I say in many of my videos, all we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision. So before further ado, let's get to it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the cost of living, because at the end of the day, cost is kind of what's going to drive our decisions in terms of like what's our monthly payment going to be. And the biggest thing that is changing the cost of living here in St. Johns County is going to be taxes and insurance. And I have a couple of things on both of those that you need to know about. Now, we've all heard about the horror stories of insurance here in Florida, hurricanes, claims, insurers leaving the state. That has all happened, and it's definitely not been a net positive for the state of Florida. But when we're talking about that, and when we're seeing it on the news, the majority of these issues are coming from South Florida and the Panhandle, where they get hit with the majority of the hurricanes. Now, North Florida is a lot more insulated. If you look, we only have had 4 hurricanes make major landfall here over the past 125 years, which is pretty awesome. Hopefully it doesn't happen anymore in the future. But if you look at the rest of the state, we're relatively insulated from those big issues. And that also reflects in our insurance cost here. Has insurance gone up 30% in the past 5 years? Yes, it has. It's gotten more expensive, right? And that's something that we don't really have control over. It's out of our hands. But at the end of the day, when you compare our local insurance to South Florida, we're still way cheaper. Here in St. Johns County, the average homeowner's insurance premium for the year is around $2,500 to $3,000, where if you look at like the state of Florida, the average is between $4,000 and $6,000 a year for homeowner's insurance. So if we're just taking averages and 50% of the population lives up here, 50% lives in the South, you're probably going to find that the homeowner's insurance in South Florida is going to be a lot more expensive than $6,000 just because it's dragging us up to that average point. But the next point that we have is also taxes here in our area. Now, property taxes in St. Johns County, comparatively to many other areas in the nation, is actually pretty cheap. You're not going to see taxes over 2% of your purchase price here in St. Johns County. So if you buy a $500,000 home, your taxes are going to be roughly somewhere between $8,000 to $10,000 a year just based on our local property tax code here. But the one thing that has changed, and a lot of people have seen this change in their annual tax bill, is the half-cent raise, which all of us voted for last year, and we all voted in favor of the half-cent raise. Now, why was there a half-cent raise, and was there any change from anything before? There was actually a half-cent sales tax put in 10 years ago that was supposed to fund schools and fund the infrastructure of those schools. It was only supposed to last for 10 years. So what we did last year is we voted on it again as a county, and we've seen so much growth here that we have more schools that we need to build, we have more infrastructure projects, roofs needing to be replaced, playgrounds needing to be redone, that have to be completed for our local school kids here. St. Johns County, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest reasons people move here is because of our school district. This year, we're rated number 2 in the entire state, just behind Nassau County, which is rated number 1. But we trade number 1 and number 2 for the past 10 years here in St. Johns County of being one of the best school districts in the entire state of Florida. So St. Johns County and their voters are not trying to mess that up. So either way, they voted again. They said, hey, we're going to do another half-cent sales tax for another 10 years here in St. Johns County so that we can continue to fund these major infrastructure projects that come down to building the schools, repairing the schools, and making sure that all the kids have a good place to go and learn. So even increasing the cost that goes towards some of the technology that goes to the schools. This is what this half-cent sales tax is for. So when we're talking about cost of living, insurance and taxes are obviously a big part of that, but also the cost of property has gone up pretty significantly. If you're just looking at single family homes here in St. Johns County, which is the majority of the real estate here in the area, you're going to see that our prices have gone up pretty significantly. Since 2020, it was around like $350,000, and right now it's $550,000, the median sale price for single family homes here in St. Johns County. Now, of course, there are areas where you can find single-family homes for $300,000. I bought a new construction home in West Augustine, a mile from downtown St. Augustine, for $300,000, which in my opinion is a great value, especially when you look at the national landscape. But we also have other properties that are millions and millions of dollars that actually skew that number pretty high. So in terms of affordability, if you're looking for a single-family home, most people are going to be in that $300,000 to $500,000 range. You can find tons of houses in that price range, and it's a very comfortable price point. But nevertheless, it does make it more expensive, and it does increase that cost of living here. So just something you need to know about. And guys, I actually have a full cost of living breakdown video if you want to check that out. It's right above here. All right, and the second biggest issue that I think you need to know about if you're living here or relocating here to our area is going to be the First Coast Expressway. So it's an issue right now, but I think in general, when it's completed, it will be a net positive for the entire area of St. Johns County, but especially that northwestern part of St. Johns County where it's going to be coming in. So if you're not familiar, the First Coast Expressway is going to be a massive expressway that is going to connect I-95 on the south end of Jacksonville through St. Johns County to I-10, which runs east and west throughout the state, but west through Jacksonville, so you don't have to go through the city of Jacksonville. So that's actually going to be a big bonus for anyone that doesn't want to drive through the city at all and still needs to get over to I-10. So it goes south through Middleburg, then hits Green Cove Springs, then goes over the St. Johns River into St. Johns County, and then connects onto 95 through the Silverleaf Master Plan community. But all the communities around that general area in the northwestern part of St. Johns County are going to be affected not only by traffic and congestion as of right now because of construction, but also in the future, because when you build such a massive highway like that, more than likely growth is going to come along with that as well. So with accessibility to Jacksonville and potentially other parts of the state with the First Coast Expressway getting easier in the future, we do expect to see more growth. And then also in St. Johns County, that could spur more master plan communities in that northwestern part of St. Johns County where they're already feeling that bottleneck of like, hey, we got a lot of infrastructure projects going on here. Outside of First Coast Expressway, they're working on 16, they're working on 210, they're working on a ton of road projects there in that area to make the traffic a bit better, but we're just not there yet. So this is something that you need to factor in if you're considering moving to the area. And the third biggest issue that I think you need to know about is there is a little bit of a contention between St. Johns County and the city of St. Augustine's leadership, which is really just kind of spurred over this past year or so, and it's surrounding the main tourist attraction that St. Augustine has, which is Nights of Lights. And this is also a big thing. If you're looking to move to downtown St. Augustine, you need to be aware that we are a tourist town. This is the lifeblood of St. Augustine. This is how a lot of people make their living, is the hospitality industry and tourists coming into town, spending good money at restaurants and bars, and taking that money, tip money, and going home and paying their bills. That's 100% the majority of the employment here in the area. So if you're looking to move to downtown St. Augustine and you're like, oh, the bars are open till 12 p.m., too bad. That's the downtown of an area. Like it's what it is. It's so silly that people complain about this. Either way, Nights of Lights is one of the biggest things that we have going on here in St. Augustine, and it accounts for a lot of the business owners' revenue, and it carries them throughout the entire year. And I have a big problem with the city of St. Augustine's leadership here. I've been very vocal about it on my channel, but they actually shorten Night of Lights. It normally goes from like the last week of November through the last week of January, so you have a good span of time. But this past year, and it happens every single year, there was a good bit of gridlock traffic. Not to mention that St. Augustine also spent about $400,000 on marketing to people so that they can drive into town here in our local area. That also caused some traffic as well. But aside from that, it's made it a big issue because gridlock traffic happens every time, and it's normally between the holidays. So when kids get out of school and New Year's, we see the majority of people, and it'll be shoulder to shoulder, belly to belly in downtown St. Augustine. When you're walking, parking and traffic and gridlock, it'll be nasty and terrible. It's not great at all. Locals like myself, We don't go downtown during that time of year. We've been there, we've seen it. Unless we have a friend that's in town that wants to go see it, we'll go down there. But I don't want to wait for a restaurant that I normally go to and sit down immediately for 45 minutes to 2 hours to go and sit down at the restaurant. I don't want to do that, right? So locals like myself normally go in January. So I mentioned before, the city of St. Augustine said, hey, we want to actually shorten this time, and we want to shorten it because we're trying to fight the traffic and congestion that we saw last year. Let me know how that makes sense in the comments, because it literally makes no sense. It doesn't at all. Because if you shorten the time, you're just going to compress the amount of people that can go into downtown, the window that they have when Nights of Lights is available. So they shortened it in January. So I think it only goes to the second week of January now, but it literally makes no sense because the majority of people we have is when kids are out of school, right? It's like the third week of December to the end of the year is when we see that peak traffic. The only thing it does is screw over the business owners that live downtown, but work downtown and have businesses downtown in the surrounding area here in St. Johns County. But it also screws over locals, because in reality, that's when I go downtown. I go downtown in January because it's dead. There's no one out there, and that's what I like. I want to go downtown there and enjoy my city without all the people and all the tourists there. So all this did is, one, hurt local businesses, but two, also hurt the locals, because now we get to enjoy our city less. We have a smaller time frame to go down there and enjoy it. Apparently, this is going to cost, someone did a study, around $135 million for our local economy. It's a big fight right now. Even St. Johns County is saying, hey, St. Augustine, this makes no sense. You need to go back to the regular dates, right? And St. Johns County just gave St. Augustine $800,000 to be able to pay for the electric bill, also some parking for the workers that go downtown. So they're like, hey, you know what? If we're going to give you this amount of money, we're going to need to see something back. So hopefully that changes here in the future. But in general, in terms of the city of St. Augustine's leadership, sad. Okay, issue number 4, and this is actually a really, really big issue, and it's something that many locals like myself are concerned with, and I'm probably one of the outsider locals where I'm like, hey, we do need to develop. We don't need to develop that much, right? Whereas many of the locals that live here are like, stop moving here, stop doing it. You guys are causing too many problems than it's worth. It's a double-edged sword, 100%. If we stop building houses, the cost of housing, the cost of living that we were just talking about raising would have gotten even crazier over these past couple years. If we keep building houses, we start to deteriorate that lifestyle that people move here for, that the open rural spaces that we have, the silviculture that we have, the beauty that Florida is, right? We start to destroy that with more and more master plan communities. And just to give you a quick example, I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. You can find a news story on it. The owner of Dreamfinders actually was trying to build a luxury community in the Guantanamo Preserve, which if you've never been there, it's something you definitely want to check out if you're here in St. Augustine. It's beautiful. There's plenty of walking and hiking trails through there, but also kayaking out of there. It's right on the Intercoastal River in the northern part of St. Johns County. Beautiful, beautiful area. They want to develop all of Florida. Any developer will want to. And that's one of the bigger problems that we're seeing here in St. Johns County. And one of the other things that locals are saying is that, hey, these commissioners, all these county commissioners that we got that make 90 grand a year, they're also in the pockets of the developers. They're approving these things. The developers cutting them a check, cutting them a check, cutting them a check. In reality, I've asked for proof on this. I'm really interested in this. I want to know. I want to know what's going on. No one's substantiated any evidence to me. Not that I'm like this big voice here and saying, I like to think I am maybe, but no one's given me any evidence. So as of right now, that's all allegedly. I don't know if that's any of that's facts, but that is kind of the feeling here in St. Augustine from many, many of the locals is like, hey, we vote people in, they say they're going to stop the growth, and then they do the opposite. So we'll keep on it. We'll see what happens. But if you're living here locally, you need to know about it. If you're moving here, something important to keep your eye on for sure. And the 5th and final issue is going to be surrounded around the locals, the people that really keep this town going, right? You got teachers here, they make about $55,000 a year. You got law enforcement here, I think they make $58,000 a year. Public education and the school system is the biggest employer. I think they employ just under 7,000 people. St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, another big employer. I think they're the number 2 or number 3 employer here in the county. They're employing a good bit of people. I think we have over 1,000 sheriffs here in the area. And then also you have the hospitality industry. These guys, they work in downtown, they serve at the bars, they serve at the restaurants, they're giving you a massage. They probably make $40,000 to $60,000 depending on their, when they work and what they do. affordability for them is getting further and further away as St. Johns County and St. Augustine continues to grow. And that's something that we really need to keep an eye on, because at the end of the day, these are the people that keep this city going, right? And there's a huge wealth disparity, right? Because the median income in St. Johns County, I believe, is $98,000 for 2024, whereas so there's people that make a ton of money, but a lot of people don't, right? And a lot of people are the people that really keep the city the tourist attraction that it is, right? Now they're having a hard time affording homes. They're having a hard time affording the cost of living here in St. Johns County. Going out to eat downtown is a far fetch for a lot of these people because of the cost of going to eat downtown. A cocktail downtown is like $12, right? It's not exactly affordable like it was 5 years ago. So this is something that we definitely need to keep watching, and if you're looking to move here, you need to be aware of this, because we have 25% of our population, they don't even touch the roads, they work from home. More than likely, if they're working from home, they're probably making north of 6 figures. They're dragging that median average household income up a pretty significant hike. But then we also have the people that have historically lived here, they're getting pushed out, right? And that's something that we definitely need to keep an eye on. We also need to be able to do more for these guys, because at the end of the day, they're keeping our area running. That being said, there are homes that are extremely affordable. There's townhomes in Entrada that you can get for $220,000, 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom. You get a bought down interest rate. You also get closing costs covered. So that's a really affordable option. Your payment will be around like $1,800. I live in West Augustine. You can find a lot of homes between $300,000 and $400,000 here. Once again, maybe not affordable for a lot of people, but in general, throughout the nation, that is affordable, right? So we still have some affordability and some opportunities for these people, but for how much longer, I don't know. And guys, if you're looking for more information like this, I do have the 10 realities of living in St. Augustine that you can check out. It's a video up here. It's linked on my channel. There's a ton of other videos there. If you are looking to buy, sell, or invest here in Northeastern Florida, make sure you reach out to me directly. I'd love to be able to help. All we try to do with me and my team is give you the education so that you can make an educated decision. Until next time, guys, have a good one.